Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Talk More, Sell More. I'm Jan Saunders Marish, and I'm here to help you talk more. And
I'm Dr. Nancy Zaire, and I'm going to help you sell more.
and today I'm very excited about helping you discover your why in your story. And before we get into the content, I just want to review quickly what the purpose of our Talk More, Sell More Club is. So the goals for the group, we'd like to help you build your sales funnel so that you don't have to continue to market, and then you get business, and then you don't have time to market and be on this revenue roller coaster. So our goal is to kind of smooth everything out and to build a sales funnel that is full with what you do with your group presentations, and then when you move people into sales conversations, you really know how to connect with them, with your prospects, using Nancy's likability system, because it's just a 1-2 punch. Don't you think, Nancy?
It absolutely is. And so Jan will fill your pipeline, your sales funnel, and I will help you convert those leads into closed business. Won't that be exciting?
Yeah, it's gonna be really cool. And so before, well, I see that we have Lisa coming on here. So we'll just, Lisa, we've started the presentation. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen.
So Jan, before you do that, or as you're doing that, just very quickly, for those of you who were unable to be live on the program, there were some questions that were not recorded as part of the recording. And just for you to be aware, we thought we'd very quickly identify that we were asked some questions in case you want to make an effort to be live, because there's a lot of good material we cover that is not being recorded.
Okay, great. Thanks for the reminder, Nancy. Okay, so the questions that we had last time were how to seed an offer, or at least seed a presentation. So we did talk a little bit about that, and then how to seed the introduction of the talk so you don't come across as salesy or weird. So those were the two big questions that we answered. And again, Nancy, thanks again for reminding me. We want to make sure that this is really valuable content for those that certainly are listening to this as a recording. But if you really want to get the most benefit from it, you really can do that by being here live, so we can answer your questions specifically. So is that what you wanted to cover, Nance? Okay.
Go for it, Jan.
Okay, good. I'm a little disoriented today because we are moving in a week, and things are a little crazy around here. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let me.
And may I also suggest you mute everybody, because I'm hearing some background.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea. Okay, so whoops. Let me. Okay, so I am. Okay, really had hoped to have a nice smooth transition into my PowerPoint, but it doesn't seem like that's the way it works. So we'll just do it this way. Okay, so share. And let's see, let me see. So I can mute everyone. Okay, let's have everybody mute yourselves, because I don't know how to do it on this end. So
okay, it's sounding good now, so I think we're all set.
Okay, good. So let me start this. And what we're talking about today is your why and your story, because as service providers, entrepreneurs, and even if you're in direct sales or you're selling a product, if you really don't know why you're doing it, and we're going to talk about really why it is you're doing it, and the deep internal why, then it makes it really hard when it gets tough going to get up and keep working on this. So I'm Jan Saunders-Marish. As you know, I'm a For Dummies author, speaker, and group sales expert, and we are all in business to sell something, whether it is a service or a product or both. And you might be wondering, you've gone along, you've done everything that all the gurus are telling you to do, and you might be wondering why your prospects aren't buying. Why is it that they're just not buying? So I want to propose something to you. What if you never faced sales rejection ever again? What if you talked only with prospects who were pre-sold? And what if they actually wanted what you offered and you were living your purpose? And this is the crux of the whole why it is to discover your why and to tell your story, because this is going to allow you to do this. So what I'm going to do here is model some of this with my personal story and some of my clients' stories so that you can understand how important and impactful it is. And so I'm going to start out by sharing with you this slide with all of my credentials on it. And it looks really impressive, right? As I mentioned, I'm a For Dummies author. I've written Home Staging for Dummies and 16 other titles. I've been on dozens of podcasts. I've presented products on Home Shopping Network. I even met Billy Mays, the OxyClean guy. And I am a trainer for the certified staging professionals. I've spoken on stages all over North America. And you know, that sounds really impressive, but honestly, it didn't start off that way. Right out of college, I got a job in a corporation. I had 2 corporate jobs in the home sewing industry. This is way back when people were sewing, and I was really happy to be part of this because I liked it. This was what I was going to school to learn how to do. And I also had a regular paycheck, corporate benefits, all of that. And I ended up getting a second job with Jo-Ann Fabrics at the national headquarters to set up an education department there. And my boss at the time thought this was going to be a real profit center in the company. And I told him sewing education really doesn't ever do that, but I went ahead, took the job. And after about 18 months, it became really clear to me that I was going to be fired if I didn't quit. And I had too much pride to do that. So I quit and found myself without a job. This was in the early 80s, and I wanted to share with you, can you believe that we did these things when we look like this? Oh my goodness, that's not me, by the way. But I did have friends who had hair like that. But here's the thing. It was a really tough time to be looking for a job because mortgage interest rates were at 14 to 18%. Unemployment was at 8%. And I was without a job. No one was hiring in my industry, and I didn't know what to do. So 1 month goes by, 2 months goes by. Finally, my friend Pam said, hey, my company's hiring. Do you want to talk to my boss? And I went, if it's not illegal and they can give me training, absolutely. So I ended up getting a job selling school jackets to kindergarten, 8th grade kids. I have a degree in secondary education on purpose. These little guys are like herding cats. But because I learned a process that I'm going to be sharing with you through the time that we're working together here in the Talk More, Sell More Club, I was able to sell $1 million worth of $20 jackets in 18 school months, two years. And it wasn't because I was so special. It was because I learned a process, and I was selling to a group. My competitors at the time were selling one jacket at a time. They'd set up a table in the lunchroom and say, do you want to buy a jacket? You want to buy a jacket? Well, I did it in a group presentation, and I learned a script. And there are a lot of folks out there that learn their sales process by using a script. And that's great, but here's the problem. You don't stand out from the crowd. So you can use that script as a track to run on, but then what you need to do is to figure out, how can I make this different? How can I make this really stand out? What can I do that is memorable, that so someone's going to buy from me and not from someone else? So here's what my friend, well, not my friend, but someone who I admire very much, Anthony Robbins, has to say about that. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. So that's why we're here today, because I'm going to propose to you that your story is what's going to connect your audience and make a difference and allow you to do much better this year with your personal sales, and to, again, flatten out that revenue roller coaster that I know I've been on. Nancy, you've been on it too, and it's not really fun. So if we're able to help you to do that, this is one of the things that's going to help you. And we're going to start out with your why. Why is it that you are doing what you're doing? Because if you don't know your why, it makes it really, really tough when it gets difficult. And as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur, as a direct sales person, as an author, speaker, we're kind of lone wolves a lot of time, and we're the ones that have to decide, all right, what am I going to do today to make things happen? And when stuff gets tough, it's really, really hard to get up and get moving. So what is your why? Okay, come here. Why aren't you moving? There we are. So Simon Sinek is an amazing marketer, and if you don't know anything about him, go ahead and go to YouTube and look at some of his TED Talks. He's amazing. And what he says is, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I'm going to say that again. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And when you think about it, just think of a purchase that you've made recently. So maybe it's maybe it's a jacket, maybe it's a piece of clothing, maybe it's a car. Well, are there other brands out there? Why did you choose the one you chose? Well, that's what we're going to look at, because once you know that why, it makes it a whole lot easier for people to make that decision. Now, you might be thinking, it's all about the money. The reason I'm doing this is to make money. Well, honestly, making money is a result of what you're selling, not your why. So let's take a little closer look at this. And I call this your internal why. Why is it that you are doing what you do? There's got to be a reason. And I'm going to share an internal why as to the reason that I'm actually doing this business. And it's part of my story that I don't generally share with a lot of people. And you heard the results, and that was amazing. But at one point in my life, I found myself married in a very abusive marriage. I found myself pregnant and stuck in this marriage I know I needed to get out of. In the state of Ohio at the time, I couldn't divorce when I was pregnant, so I didn't know what I was going to do. But had the baby, who's now 29, and I was able to get out of this horrible situation. But I found myself without, what was I going to do? I had this infant. I needed to put a roof over our head. I had to make money to put food on the table, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I took that basic process that I had learned in selling jackets in what I always called my silly little jacket job. And I was able to take everything that I learned there and sell my books through sewing seminars that I put on throughout the country. And I had sponsors that would bring me in to speak, and I took Todd on the road with me, and we were in an RV so he could be with me, and my parents also pitched in and took care of him so I could take care of us. And it's because of that very internal why. There was no getting around it. If I didn't put a roof over our heads, we were really in trouble. So that was my internal why as to why I'm doing this now, because I know if I can share this and if I can overcome this like I did many years ago, that it's going to make a real difference in people's lives. Okay, so you need to really dig deep. And this is really hard because it puts you in a really vulnerable place. But when you remember why you started, it really helps then to communicate your story to others, and they can find a way to connect with you in a very unique way. So why is story, and what is story, and why is it so important? So normally I do this in a live presentation, so I want you to kind of just put your ears, open your ears, and listen very carefully. I'm going to give you a 5-line story that I'm going to read here, and I'm going to ask you some questions about what you just heard as a way to demonstrate how important story is. So here it is. A man called Nigel is sitting next to his enormous 300-pound pet squid as they travel around in the back of his lime green limo. They're arguing over what to watch on the limo's TV, Coronation Street or Sesame Street. And the story goes on from there. But that just gives you an idea as to what's going on. So I want you to, in your mind or on a piece of paper here, what is the name of the main character? If you remembered Nigel, you're right. What was his pet? If you remembered a 300-pound squid, you were right. And do you remember the color of the limo they were riding around in? Lime green. Okay, so can you see just with this really simple little story, by looking at that story and telling the story, people will remember the story. They might not remember what you're selling, but they're going to remember the story behind it. So that's why story is so very important in a sales situation. And your personal story is what really connects you to your audience. So there was our story. And what we need to do now is to take a look at what's your story and what is going to help you stand out, so that people not only buy the first thing that you're sharing with them, but they're going to become part of your tribe, and they're going to buy from you over and over and over again because you make that personal connection with them. Or as I like to put it, how to find the silver lining when your cape has been trampled in the mud. That's what we're going to be sharing in the story, is really how is your superhero story. In newsflash, yeah, it's about you, and it's important. Now, before I go into this, I don't want us to ignore the elephant in the room. And actually, every single one of my clients that I can think of now was afraid of sharing their personal story. And if you're thinking, gosh, if I share my personal story, I'm not professional, or, why is that important? Here's what you need to understand. You're not afraid of talking or sharing information with people. You do that every day. You talk with people every day. What we are afraid of as human beings is we are afraid of sharing our feelings, because we're thinking, oh my gosh, what will people think of me? And I know when Nancy was getting ready to prepare her TED Talk in Boston, Nancy and I had been working together for about 3 years, and it wasn't until we really started working and digging that she finally shared with me some things that I had never learned about her. And what was the biggest, and I'll have you unmute, Nancy, what was the biggest aha that you discovered in the after party of that? I mean, what did people say to you? Unmute yourself, yeah.
Yeah, so the big thing I will just share again that it was so hard for me to initially write this because I was going deep inside and sharing something very personal. And yet, when people came up to me, it was because I had been so vulnerable and shared personal information that they were able to connect and tell me how meaningful it was and beneficial for them to hear. So here it was, the very thing that was tripping me up was what was connecting me to people.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. So what I'm going to do the rest of the time we have together is to share some powerful stories of other clients of mine and the results that they got. And if you are hesitant to do this, I am going to give you three words of wisdom from my dear, sweet, departed mother-in-law. And she said, can't, never did. So I'm going to ask you to feel the fear and do it anyway, because it has a huge payoff, because your story makes you memorable. It makes you stand out from the crowd. And again, when you begin to do that, you're going to be building your tribe, and it is so much easier selling something to someone who is already a customer or client than finding new ones. So let's build that story, and it won't cost you a dime. You just have to dig deep. All right, so this is a story I'm going to share with you about my client, Seth Tannenbaum, and he is a Schooley Mitchell franchise owner. And Dennis Schooley was at an event, a launch that we did with Seth. And I have to tell you a little bit about him. He is, well, and he'll admit to this too, and he knows I'm sharing this story, but he's odd. He's just flat odd. He kind of walks funny, and he has this very loud voice that has kind of a quacky sound to it. I won't demonstrate it. But the thing is, when you are in a networking event with Seth, you know he's there because you can hear him from across the room. And he was very, very hesitant to share his personal story. But when he did, he hosted a networking event, shared his story, and this is what Dennis Schooley had to say about that event. Hi, Seth, this is an email he got the day after. Hi, Seth, I just wanted to let you know what a wonderful job you did last night. You were fantastic, brilliant, and incredible. Your presentation was very personal, and it connected with everyone, and yet you also got your business message across very well. There were serious times plus laughter and clapping, which was very unique at a networking event like this. Now, what you don't know about Seth is that he almost took his life at age 14. He has Asperger's, and he is odd. And most people who he had been connecting with at networking events, in his sales conversations, just kind of didn't get him until this presentation. And what has happened since is absolutely remarkable. Everyone first is in awe of him and what he has been able to accomplish and overcome. Here's Seth's why. He wants to do this business so that he can help other families with children with Asperger's and Alzheimer's. And when he gets this business up and running, he can hand it off to employees so he can go and speak and help other people. That is his why. That's why he gets up every morning, and he's the hardest working guy I have ever seen. But to make enough money and to get this successful so that he can really live his why. And in 18 months, which is going to be, I think, in February or March, he will be in the black. That's like record breaking. And he's had some tough going, but he knows his why, and he's shared his story, and it's made a huge, huge difference. So you may be wondering how to do this in your particular situation. And I want you to meet your superhero. You can put your picture there because what we're going to do is with your story, and it doesn't have to be long. I think Nancy, I mean, your TED Talk was only like what, 12 minutes or something. So it was little tiny, but it was enough that you took people on a journey of your dream, the disaster, the decision to go forward, the difficulty that you had along the way. There were some obstacles that were in the way. And finally, you stuck it out, you figured it out, and you were sharing then your story of deliverance. So let's take a look at the beginning of the story, your dream and your why. And when you have absolute clarity on who your audience is and how it is that you can help them, then you're going to be able to really move your business forward because you've figured it out, right? So you know your why, you took action, you figured it out, and you're thinking, okay, great. If I can help myself, I can help others. But I want to caution you about something because I know when we each, and me personally, when I have had an epiphany, I just am ready to go out there and tell the world and how wonderful it is and that I know what you need. Now that I've personally discovered it, now that you know what they need to do what you did. And there's a way of sharing this that makes sense. So let me back up a little bit and share another story with you. Recently, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. It's weird because no one in our family has high blood pressure, but I do now. And I went to the cardiologist and she said, well, Jan, you have a couple of options here. You can lose 15, 20 pounds and eat right and exercise, or you can take medication. Well, I really need to, and I'd like to lose 20 pounds, 15, 20 pounds, but here's the problem. I really love and I want chocolate chip cookies. So no matter what I do, I really want that chocolate chip cookie, and it's really hard. And, so we're in the 1st of January here, and I bet a lot of folks who've made New Year's resolutions have dropped them already because they know they need to do these things, but they don't want to. So when you are doing a sales presentation or a group presentation and telling your story, what you're going to be focusing on is what it is that buyers want rather than what you think they need. Okay, so how are you going to do that? All right, you're going to share your story, your dream, your why. You took action, and you're going to share your difficulty with them. And I'm going to tell you about my client, Lean Zabalawi. She is from a very well-to-do family in Jordan. All of the people in her family, men and women alike, are physicians. And she just knew she didn't want to be a doctor, so she went to school and got a degree in pharmacy. And she became a pharmacist, realized that she hated doing it, got married, moved to the United States, and decided, you know what, I'm going to do something different because I now have these 2 beautiful twins. I think they're 6 now, but these beautiful little children. And her why was she wants to be able to give these beautiful children the opportunity that she had and a private education, which in a private school where she is in Detroit, it's $20,000 a child for kindergarten through 12th grade. A lot of money. So she wasn't going to do it as a pharmacist, so she went to school and became an interior designer. And she worked at all of these different organizations. And retail is very, very difficult because it requires a lot of time. So what she decided to do was to buy a Decorating Den franchise. And Decorating Den has a formula, and she's an interior designer. But here's the issue. One of the things that Decorating Den did was a mailing to certain zip codes, and she invited people into an opening. And the problem was that no one, well, there were a few people who showed up, but not the numbers that she needed to really make this successful, because she's Muslim. And the reason that we started working together is she said, you know, the traditional way that Decorating Den Interiors is not working for me. People look at me and they think I'm a terrorist, which of course she is not. So when we started working together, I said, well, the very first thing you need to do is to share your story so that people understand you and the trials and tribulations that you have gone through to get where you've gotten. And so here is what she was able to share, is that her story, what it is that she wants to accomplish, and then all of the trouble that she has had getting to that place. And we started like, this is who I am. I look different. What can I possibly do to make your home more beautiful? Well, let me tell you a little bit about my story. And one of the things that she ran into was that her family members, mostly her family members, are saying, this is really silly. I can't believe you're doing this. Why wouldn't you just go back to pharmacy? And there were a lot of naysayers. But here's what happened. Once she started sharing her story with her target audience, she became the Dream Room contest winner for 2016 and won 3 other national awards through Decorating Den. Including the People's Choice. I think 30,000 people had to vote on her designs. She's an amazing designer, but it wasn't until she was sharing her story and her, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to go there. I'm going backwards there. It wasn't until she shared her story that she was able to connect with people and begin to start making enough money to afford that private education for her children, which she has done many times over at this point. So remember, life is like an elevator. On your way up, sometimes you have to stop and let some people off. You know, if people are saying, you really, why are you doing this? You just need to go on and work with people who are going to be in your corner, like we are here in Talk More, Sell More Club. All right, now lastly, I'm going to share the story about Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins, because his is definitely a journey of a superhero. And he was kicked out of his childhood home at age 17 and was basically homeless, lived in the basement of his school and was the custodian there until he found a job with Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn taught him how to sell and was a thought guru of the 1970s. And he had an absolute incredible experience with Jim Rohn. He was making $300,000 a year. He had his own home, he had his car, and he decided, though, that he wanted to go back to school and get his GED and graduate with his class. Well, the reason sounded noble, but the reason that he really wanted to do that is he wanted to gloat, and he wanted to show off to everybody, hey, look at me, I've got a car, I've got a house, I'm rich, you know, neener, neener, neener. Well, that didn't work. And he ended up finding out that everybody, all the other kids were interested in learning or getting on with their lives. And so he ended up in a deep pit of depression, and in his early 20s lost his car, lost his house, and finally found himself at the public library learning neuro-linguistic programming. Now, there were a lot of people in that day and time that were learning NLP, but he did it a little differently, and he was so excited about sharing this with everyone that he started doing group presentations in backyards all over Los Angeles. And you probably have seen the Firewalk. And he has taught hundreds of thousands of people how to use neuro-linguistic programming to overcome their shortcomings, and the rest is history. So I'm just sharing this with you because you have your own journey, you have your path, and when you stick it out to the end and you show that there is light at the end of the tunnel, you have deliverance and can share that story with your audience and then really begin to build your brand. So what is the lesson in this? I'm not perfect. I'm not special. And when you share that with people, you endear them to you. And you've shared your worst, did your best, and you can too. So hopefully you can see how easily this can be incorporated, and you're going to have to dig very, very deeply to get there to share that story. But when you do, you will be sitting in front of people, and you will never face sales rejection ever again. You'll talk with prospects who are pre-sold not only on your service and product, but on you. And they'll actually want what you offer, and you'll be living your purpose. So when you know your why and embrace your journey, the success is what you see at the top of the iceberg, but that you've persisted, you've sacrificed, and you've had a lot of dedication. You know your why. And when you share your story, you will inspire others. You can provide help, support, advice, and guidance, and it doesn't cost you a dime. So that's it for today. I am going to go ahead and sign out. I'm Jan Saunders Marish, and I am here to help you talk more. And Nancy?
I'm Dr. Nancy Zare, and I'm going to help you sell more.
Okay, and whoops, let's see here. Now I have to okay.
And pause the recording.
Pause the recording. How do I do this? Okay. Oh no. Good thing we can edit these is all I can say. So let me go. Stop share. And now I'd like to
stop the recording.
Stop the recording. There we are.